Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time we got two questions that kind of go along with each other, and I'm going to read them both before responding, so do bear with me here. But the first one comes to us from Cadillac DeMille, who said, "Hey Thor, Disney continues to put out their movies and shows with the caveat that it's after, at the same time, or in some way connected to the sequel trilogy timeline. Why do you think they continue to do this? From a certain point of view, the fandom at large has overwhelmingly rejected all sequel-related content since the movies released. By making movies or shows related to a storyline that a great deal of fans want erased from canon, why would they continue to tie their projects to it and tell everyone about it? At what point do you think they would, not that they will, but could, finally say we've seen enough evidence that no matter what we do, everything sequel trilogy related or adjacent fails for us, it loses us money, it's time to delete?" And that then goes along with this one from Callum Quinn Creates, who said, "Hey Thor, have you noticed that Star Wars shows and movies since the sequels ended have lacked a core show or trilogy to center around? The OT eventually had the books and comics, the prequels had books, comics, and the 2D series. The Clone Wars essentially acted as a mini-era in itself, with its own books and comics supporting it, and the sequel trilogy had books, comics, and animated series. I think a major reason these eras were so successful was the ease with which people could follow the story, and if you wanted more, then there was plenty of extra stories spreading out from the core narrative. The closest we've got since is Mando, but when that hit it big, they chose to make other shows, wait like 2 years for the third season, and now they're jumping to the big screen. There isn't a core storyline for casual fans anymore. It's kind of exhausting, even as a hardcore fan, for every announced project to jump around the timeline. My suggestion would be to make a core storyline again in a new era. I think you yourself have even suggested something similar. What do you think?" And I'm assuming a lot of you are now seeing the connection between the two comments and how maybe one sort of answers the other. That being that I think the reason why the sequel trilogy is still embraced, why it's the thing going forward now. I mean, if you haven't been following Star Wars news and you clicked on this video for whatever reason, the future is the sequel trilogy in the eyes of Disney and Lucasfilm. The next movie, yes, is The Mandalorian and Grogu, which comes out next May, and that doesn't really, or shouldn't really have anything to do with the sequels. That kind of ties more into the Mandoverse, which is kind of its own setting or core story, whatever you want to call it. But then after that, we will have Starfighter in 2027, and then there is supposedly a Rey movie that has seen many different writers come and go, but we also have Simon Kinberg doing a trilogy which will feature sequel trilogy characters, including Rey. So the future very much seems to be the sequel trilogy. And why I think that is the case is because they feel like, and I'm not saying I think they're right, but I think they, meaning Disney and Lucasfilm, the powers that be who control Star Wars essentially, I think they really feel like the sequel trilogy either isn't as hated as some people believe it to be, that again, it is only a very loud, vocal minority, which I disagree with. I think it's not that everybody hates the sequels. I just don't know that your average fan, the casual viewer, whatever you want to call them, I don't think they were wowed by the sequels. I don't think they stuck into their mind. I don't think they're like, wow, those were amazing movies. I can't wait for more. Because if that were the case, and if Disney and Lucasfilm believed it, which they seem to, but didn't do it in practice, you would think they would have immediately jumped on that and started making more projects, more films and shows set after or around the sequel trilogy. And yet here it's been 6 years, or it will be in December. It's going to be 6 years since the last Star Wars film came out. So to me, that says they acknowledge or understand that no, the sequels weren't really all that embraced. Otherwise, they would have, again, kept going. Yet here we are years later, and now they think they're going to be embraced. I guess they're hoping people forgot how much they didn't necessarily enjoy them. Again, I'm not saying every Star Wars fan hates them. I know some fans out there love them. That's fine. But I think the general consensus, and this is, of course, my skewed perspective, you could say, but I think the general consensus around the sequels is they weren't very good all around, that no, there wasn't a cohesive story or a coherent one at all, that every movie kind of went in a different direction, there was no real plan, there was no game plan for the whole thing, and it just kind of ended up a complete mess in the last movie. It's rare when I meet people, even those who like the sequels, who will say that The Rise of Skywalker was like a really great way to end it all. Yes, there are those who will say it just because they can't bring themselves to ever disparage Star Wars in any way, shape, or form. But I think most of us, again, love the sequels, hate the sequels, will say, yeah, there were some problems there and they didn't end particularly well. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is I do think Disney and Lucasfilm realize a lot of people didn't like the sequels, but I don't think they know what else to do but to base what comes next off of them, because at least people are familiar with them. I'm assuming what the hope is with these next round of movies that will be post-sequel trilogy again. What they're thinking is, well, if you look back at the prequels, and there was supposedly a lot of hate for the prequels 20 some years ago now, but at the time The Force Awakens came out, the prequels were only like, what, 10 years old? And the hate for them seemed to have evaporated completely, right? Everybody was just excited for The Force Awakens. Even people who didn't like the prequels were probably excited for The Force Awakens. I don't remember too many people not excited. And of course, we can look at the box office returns for The Force Awakens and say, yeah, people wanted to go see Star Wars. So what I think Disney and Lucasfilm are hoping here is that you've kind of forgotten how much you didn't like the sequels, if you are, again, kind of a casual, more average fan, whatever you want to call them, and that you're just going to be excited to go see a Star Wars movie. And then when you do go see it, well, the next one is The Mandalorian and Grogu, and I think they're just hoping you know those two characters. Either you've seen the series or you just heard of the little green guy, the little baby Yoda, and so you're going to go check it out. But after that, in 2027, which will be 8 years after The Rise of Skywalker, or 7.5 technically, I think they're just hoping you're excited to go see more Star Wars, and you don't, again, care how much you didn't like the sequels. And I'm not talking hardcore fans who are maybe done with Star Wars after them, or very skeptical about anything and everything Disney does. I'm again talking about that casual fan, that average viewer who were the reason The Force Awakens made $2 billion at the box office. After, again, there is this belief that the prequels were just hated and nobody would care about Star Wars ever again because George Lucas destroyed it. Basically, they are, I believe, thinking that enough time has gone by and that people are just going to, again, forget or forgive and go see Star Wars. And they're hoping, fingers crossed, that they can create something that is familiar to a degree. Like most of the people who are going to see the next round of movies probably saw the sequels. They're hoping they can make something good that is familiar, that carries on the story, that helps you understand, because I do agree one of the problems Star Wars has is it jumps around the timeline. One minute we're getting Andor, then we're getting Skeleton Crew, then we're going to get a Darth Maul show, and then it's Ahsoka Season 2, and it's like these movies and shows just keep jumping all over the place. And again, if you're not the most hardcore Star Wars fan, even if you're a pretty knowledgeable fan, it's kind of hard to keep track of all of this, where it's all taking place. And as the one comment said, I've suggested just picking a timeline, picking the Old Republic, or going far in the future and just setting everything around that in a more linear fashion. And I think that's what they are going to do, only they're going to do it post-sequel trilogy because, again, as I said, they're hoping you have forgiven or forgotten or going to give them another chance, and maybe someday, somehow, if we can get her right this time, you're going to like Rey. That's what I think the game plan is, to, yes, make a new kind of core time period, the post-sequel trilogy time period, which plays off the sequels, and that they can somehow get it right this time. Alright, I think that is enough rambling for one video. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think here. What would your answer to these two questions, which again are pretty related if you think about it? What do you think it is? Do you think they're hoping you've kind of forgotten and forgiven? Do you think they're just complete idiots and they have no idea what they're doing, so they're just going to go post-sequel trilogy for the heck of it? Or, of course, you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video just like this one. What you got to do, you start your comment off with "Hey Thor," I try to answer it in a future video, but whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.